All right, welcome everyone. Today's video is going to be covering a new BFS spool for the Curado BFS. It is the Roro CB26. I did a kind of like an unboxing slash video kind of talking about the specs and stuff. I'll have that link down below. I'm just going to be talking about the performance of this spool. So if you want to see that, keep watching. Also comment down below what future BFS content you want to see. All right, so to get started, I will show the lures that I'm using. I'm using mostly on the finesse side of lures. I don't have enough line on here. I thought I had more line on a reel when I transferred line. So I'll be testing out the lightweight capabilities, seeing how flat it casts, how accurate, how consistent, to see if the Roro CB26 spool is going to be for you. Before I get started as well, they are available for pre-order right now. At baitfinesse Empire. That link will be down below, and also if you're not in the US, I'll include the Roro link as well. All right, so for the lures I'm using today, the heaviest lure, this is the Jackson. This is all just for simplest sake, this cocoon worm, that's what I like to call it. That is 2.7 grams, and the lightest lure that I use is the coveted litmus test of all BFS casting, the Trout Magnet. And then in between, I have the Euro Micro Z Vibe right there. And then this is a Jackson Cyril sinking popper frog. That weighs 1.8 grams. The line I'm using, this is Verivis. It's bush trail. I've been using it a lot. I did review, all that kind of stuff on it. That's in 4 pound. So it's pretty typical BFS. Right, to start off with, I'll start with that Jackson cocoon worm, 2.7 grams. So this is gonna be pretty easy to cast on this, I think. My spool setting, I'll put it on a 4 out of a maximum 6. My spool tension is set to have barely any side-to-side play. Pretty standard how I set my BFS reels up. I have a feeling I'm probably going to run out of line with this. Oh, wow. Yeah, I almost ran out of line. I can tell you just from that, it felt really nice. I could probably turn the brakes up or lower them. And I do have the water is a little high right now. I do have a retaining wall right here. So I do have to kind of work my lures a little bit faster. I'll flip casting. I was really flat. It's not, and this, I should say, this lure almost acts like a spoon. You just got to reel in real slow, and it has a nice little side-to-side shimmy on it, and then it sinks pretty horizontal. So it's definitely a underutilized trout bait for me. I used it a lot in the beginning of the season, and then I kind of switched it up a little bit. Fishing some faster waters that I can't really use it in. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna put much time into this. It definitely casts this lure easier than it would with the stock spool for sure. Yeah, I'm gonna switch over. This was very flat casting, very free, and I didn't get any fluffing up. I can't really mess with the brake settings to get more distance, which I do apologize. When I transferred this line onto the spool, I did not think that I would have this little of line. All right, so next I have this is the Jackson Cyril sink. It's a sinking popper, which sounds kind of weird, but you can almost just work it like a wake bait on the top of the water. And it would have a little bit better action if I was not using a snap, but for the sake of time, I'm using it with a snap. I'll keep my brake setting on 4. I can tell you that is much easier to cast with this spool than with the stock spool. I remember when I did the Curado BFS versus the clamber video back in the fall time frame, I had to be very, very careful. I mean, I can turn my brakes down a little bit with this. I had to be very careful and kind of float my cast a little bit because it wasn't casting the lure all that great. I mean, that's nice, and there's a lot of swirling wind. The current, you can see the current is going this way. No, it's going this way, but the wind's blowing this way, so it creates a lot of disturbance. But I mean, I could even, oh, that was bad. I got a pretty bad backlash there, but I don't have that much line on, so I'm pretty much there. I'm already out of that backlash, and I kind of just launched that into the air. Let me turn my brakes up a little bit if I'm doing casts like that. Yeah, you can see that lure, it's going that way, then just cuts that way. So this is a really good test. I mean, control, other than that wild cast I did, I mean, it feels really nice. Even with the wind, I mean, you can see there's not much fluffing up at all. Right there. Feels really nice. Now I'm going to throw a couple pitches. Again, this lure weighs 1.8 grams with all this wind. I mean, that feels nice pitching. I should turn the, to pitch, I'll turn the brakes down a little bit. I mean, that's nice. I mean, the line's staying managed on there. Turn my brakes down just slightly. Well, I hung up in there a little bit. That was my fault though. And a good thing about this spool, which I mentioned in my first video, is you don't have to deal with any extra magnets. So swapping is easy. As take the spool out, you take the cast control knob off, slide that pin in there, put the spool back together. It's a lot faster than having to mess with those magnets if you had the Avail spool, which I do have, and I like it. I do feel that this spool has a little bit more control, just off of memory. I'm gonna have to watch my Curado and SLX videos that I use the Avail spool with, which I encourage you to watch too if you're on the fence between two different types of spools. I'll put those links down below. One thing that this spool has, a little bit more line capacity than the Avail spool. So that's something to keep in mind if you don't use very much line. Maybe the Avail will be better, but I don't think there's enough line capacity difference that the amount of line. So the weight of this spool is with the bearing. So this is a different estimate, is 4.97 grams. So the weight of the bearing technically doesn't affect rotation, but let's just say it does. So the line capacity difference is not going to be the, what would that be? A little over 3 gram difference. You're not going to put over 3 grams of line on this spool. So the spool capacity thing, although like the Avail spool seems like it's a little bit more finesse oriented, just because of the line capacity. So that's something to keep in mind too, is that this spool will still be overall lighter. I'm going to change lures over, probably that Micro Z vibe. But that does lead to the Curado, this Roro spool still being a little bit more versatile, because you can put a little bit bigger line on there as well, which I am using monofilament right now. I should say this. It's not recommended by Roro to use monofilament. I've been using monofilament on the spools and it's been fine, but use that at your own risk, because mono, how it stretches, that stretch can compound on your spool and actually collapse it, because they're so thin and light that all that force can actually crush your spool. So be very careful if you are using monofilament. All right, so now this is that Euro Micro Z vibe. It's very, very small. I'll have all the weights of the lures down below, like I said, but it comes with a nice little single hook on there. I think this is kind of like the second most popular, can a BFS reel cast this lure? So this is one of them. This lure does cast pretty good, so I'm not really too concerned. Yeah, that feels, there's no fluff up on there. That feels nice. It's a little, ooh, I want 3.5. I don't know if I want to turn that down anymore with this wind. Oh, that's so cute, those little cute vibrations. Look at that little guy. It is steelhead season right now, and I am in a river that has steelhead, and it's one of those times where I hope I do not catch a fish, because I don't have much line on. Yeah, the wind's taking that a little bit. I'm just seeing if there is any loose line, which there hasn't been any loose line piling up. Sometimes that is a negative side of having a V-shaped spool. It's a very, very small V shape, which I think it leads more benefits than just having a completely flat spool, because you can hide your knot a little bit better. Especially with that Avail spool, I noticed my knot having it catches the line a lot, because it's completely flat. There's no holes, or there's no way to hide your knot with that spool. That feels nice. Oh, that is nice. And that's why I like this orange line, this orange Varivis bush trail. When I'm pitching, especially in this darker water, it just pretty much disappears in there. But when I'm pitching, and sometimes, especially these small lures with the glare, kind of how it is, you can lose sight of your lure. But with that line, you're able to watch your line a lot easier. So I can watch my line like up here. I can kind of tell by the angle where my lure is at, and then it helps my eyes be able to find the lure a little bit better, especially on short casts where you don't have as much time to track your lure. Yeah, it feels nice. I may as well just move on to to the premier part of probably why at least a third of you guys clicked on this video is the Trout Magnet. So I will do that, and I'll see if this spool gets the Trout Magnet seal of approval. All right, so now Trout Magnet. All right, I'm rigging it up. There's nothing wrong with this lure. I'm kind of being sarcastic about casting and stuff because it's just a, I don't want to say it's a useless test, but it's almost useless test to seem to qualify BFS reels. So make sure I get all loosey-goosey for this. One man, one lure, one spool. Hobie-Wan Kenobi stars in the high-octane thriller, Trout Magnet. All right. So I went over a casting tutorial video. Another thing, make sure you have a somewhat wide athletic stance when you're casting a Trout Magnet. Loose wrist. Okay. You want to follow through with your hips, wherever your hips are pointing. That's where your lure is going to go. Okay. Alright, so as you saw, it's a pretty capable spool. I mean, I'd say it's more capable than the Avail spool just from my limited testing. I didn't get to test it with any heavier trout minnows, but just from my casting here, I'm sure that with those, you know, 3.5 to 5.5 gram minnows, it's gonna be very flat. I know, let's say the Creep Aim 46S, which is 4 grams, and the Ryuki 50S, which is 4.5 grams. Those didn't hang up a lot with the stock spool, but they did kind of want to hang up in the air a little bit, unless you set your brakes really, really loose, and then you're kind of running into a lot of backlashes. I know that the Avail spool really helped with being able to cast those lures accurately, flat, in stream settings. So I imagine that this spool will do that, maybe even a little bit better. But the lighter weight, the light side, I do think that this is a little bit more capable than the Avail spool. So if you want to keep watching these types of videos, make sure you subscribe, and I appreciate you watching. Until next time.